Matthews, a fertility acupuncturist and fellow of the Acupuncture and TCM Board of Reproductive Medicine. I wanted to make reproductive research and fertility medicine more accessible so that everyone can get their positive. Because whether you believe it or not, you're more fertile than you think. Culinary expert and popular social media celebrity Jamie Milne, who makes her living on camera, had to hide her own struggles with endometriosis and infertility. Listen as Jamie tells us about her pain, frustrations, surgery, and infertility to ultimately get her positive and become pregnant. This is her story. Jamie!
And
Everything delish.
Stop it.
I can't. Thank you so much for having us in your beautiful home.
Thank you for having me. As you know, I'm your number one fan. So
I think judging by the amount of pictures that I took of your things, I don't know if you saw me doing that or not. I am a bigger fan. Let's jump in.
Yep.
I know that this isn't necessarily just a fertility story.
Yep.
I feel like it's important to really identify that it started much younger.
Yeah.
So if you would be comfortable, we'll dive right into
The journey.
your journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do I begin? Oh my goodness. Izzy. So when I was 16, I first went on birth control and it was like no brainer. Like I just went to my mom and was like, hey, like think it's time. And she was like, okay, we're going to go to the doctor. And I was on a less for almost 10 years. At this time, like my periods, like I always had like a heavier period and I always had cramping.
Yes.
But it just was something that I've dealt with forever. So I never thought anything of it. Like
Right.
it never was an alarming thing because cramping from what I thought like was always normal from a young age.
Right.
So when I was 23, 24, I really didn't feel well. I felt like something was really off. I was getting my period.
Out of the blue, like you were well, and then all of a sudden.
Yes, I'll never forget. It was like right when I ended second semester, I was about to move home for the summer.
Right.
And I was getting my period like 3 weeks out of the month. It was really, really, really bad.
Right.
And my PMS was out of control.
Even on the pill.
On the pill. And it was like stomach issues, like always like GI issues, always going to the bathroom like after I ate. Like it was like, oh, Jamie has like a bad stomach. Like
Right.
it was just always like I wasn't feeling well. And I remember like my number one symptom that actually caused me the most discomfort was like my breast tenderness. Like I would take one step and my boobs would freaking kill. And I was like, hey, something is not right. I don't feel well. I also was retaining a lot of water. So it didn't matter like how clean I was eating, how much I was working out. Like I was always really, really bloated.
Right.
And I remember I went home and I told all this to my doctor. She was like, you're still fine on the pill. Like stay on the pill.
Had you changed it, or was it the same one pretty consistently?
It was the same one consistently.
Right.
And so she was like, you're fine. And she's like, we're going to do an ultrasound. Like just, make sure everything's fine there. But you know what? For your bad cramps and for your heavy periods, you're just going to take an Advil extra strength. So I was told to basically accept the pain and like just take an Advil.
Right.
So then I did the ultrasound and then it came back that I had a cyst. And what upset me looking back the most is that my mom has had 2 dermoid cysts. She actually had one removed before she before she got pregnant with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it upset me because my mom's doctor was my doctor.
Right.
So seeing that I had a similar cyst,
Yes.
it upset me that like now that like it was just like, oh, it's a period cyst.
Right.
When I was born with this, I have had it my entire life.
Yeah.
So
With teeth and hair and.
yes, like a really nice dermoid cyst. And so that was like the first time that I was like, I don't know. I wouldn't call it like looking back. I was like that was dismissive, but it was just like, oh, it's normal, right? Like your bad periods and the cramping and the way that you're feeling, like you're a woman, you have a period, like you have PMS, just take an Advil and everything will be okay.
Right.
And so then fast forward to,
It was basically normalized. Like, you will always have a bad period.
Yeah.
Just accept this. You likely have IBS.
yeah,
Just accept this.
exactly. Like everything is fine. And it was actually after I found out that I had a cyst and I was feeling so shitty that I didn't even consult my doctor and I stopped taking the pill. And I haven't been on the pill since.
Right.
So that was like probably when I was 23 and now I'm 30.
What made you decide to stop?
Because I knew something was wrong with my body.
Because of the pill.
I knew the way that I was feeling was not normal.
Right.
It wasn't normal for me to get my period 3 weeks out of the month. It wasn't normal to have breast tenderness every single day.
Yeah.
It wasn't normal to experience PMS constantly. So I went off of it. But when I went off of it, it was more like, I'm just going to give myself a break.
Yeah.
But I felt so good
Yes.
that I didn't go back on it because I felt like myself again. And then fast forward, I ended up switching doctors because I really reflected on the way that I was treated and I was not happy with it. And I wanted to really be in the hands of someone that was, who I trusted, because I felt like I didn't trust my old doctor anymore.
Right.
And I went to go see my new doctor and we love her. So I'm going to say her name, Dr. Boro. And, we talked about, again, my periods and everything and my stomach issues. And she was like, you know what? I told her about my cyst and she was rightfully, amazingly so. She was like, let's just go get it checked out again. Let's monitor this cyst. Let's get an ultrasound. And so at first we saw that I had an ultrasound. It hadn't grown, the cyst, very much since when I got it when I was 23, 24.
Right.
But we always kept an eye on it. And then fast forward, sorry, feel like I'm going all over the place.
No, don't worry.
Fast forward to 3 years ago, I would say. Maybe 2.5, 3. Yeah, 3 years ago. I wasn't feeling well again. My GI issues were really bad. I was really bloated. I felt like my periods were getting worse and more painful.
Yeah.
And so Dr. Boro was like, let's do an ultrasound again. Did an ultrasound, but this time it came back that I have a 5 centimeter dermoid cyst. So this period cyst that was being detected this entire time actually was a dermoid cyst. And they wanted me to get a CT scan for further analysis. Right. And prior to this, I saw someone in the, I don't want to say it's a I don't know. I saw someone. Wellness field.
Right.
Who I spoke about knowing I have a cyst and knowing I have these GI issues. And she said to me, you're probably going to have a really hard time getting pregnant.
Without any context.
And I am 26, 27, not even thinking about really fertility at this point.
Not even there, in fact, or anything fertility related.
No, I went to treat neck pain, right. I wasn't going for fertility reasons.
That probably stuck with you then. I mean, it's been now 3+ years and you've still.
And I will never forget
traumatized.
How I felt in that moment and how being whoa, something is wrong with me. Something is wrong. Here I have someone that I'm putting my trust in to make me feel better. Yes. And they're giving me their unsolicited advice and they're telling me that I'm probably going to have a really hard time getting pregnant.
Right.
And that is something, and we will get to that later, but I feel like that was constantly at the back of my mind as I would go through this journey because that is what I was told.
Right.
So then when I found out that I had this dermoid, Dr. Boro ended up sending me to Dr. Croft. And I'm so grateful because I ended up seeing Dr. Croft and I went in thinking oh, I have a 5 centimeter dermoid, probably not going to need to get surgery. I'm getting married in 6 months. I'm okay.
Was it a surgical consult or was she sending you just as a gynecological?
Just as a gynecological. Yes, I'm not even trying to say that word. Just as a, let's just go see what's going on. She specializes in minimally, oh my God, I can't say anything today. Minimally invasive surgery. And
Those are hard, to be
right,
fair.
right.
Yeah, gynecological, minimally
Okay, we're not
invasive.
even like now we're
Like,
like
if she got even remotely hammered at any type of event and
can't
tried
even-
to explain what she did,
yeah, I can't even say
Forget
like
it.
OB, like that actual word, like hey, Izzy, sorry.
Obstetrician.
So, I know all these words are difficult.
Yeah.
So I went to go see her just thinking, because we didn't think I was going to need surgery.
Yes.
That was not on my mind. It was like, we're just going to keep an eye on it. Like, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And I meet Dr. Croft, who was amazing. And she asked me more questions about my history of just like stomach issues, bloating, all these things that no one has really asked me before.
Yeah. And you thought were probably separate issues.
Right. Like, I'm here thinking like I'm a Jew with a bad stomach. Like, I'm here thinking like I have IBS, like every other, all my other friends. Like, I went to naturopaths. I was diagnosed with SIBO. Like, I took every supplement. I went paleo. I've done all these things and the bloat never went away.
Yes.
Like, the bad periods and the cramping, like they never went away.
Right.
And so I went into Dr. Croft's office and she asked me questions about my bloating, my stomach issues, my periods, my cramping. She wanted to know absolutely everything. And with it asking me, like, I felt like the dermoid, like we probably talked about for like 5 seconds. She was like, yeah, it's 5 centimeters. Like, let's just get it out. Why do we need it in there? Like, I think it's best that like we go surgery. And I was like, okay, not what I was like going to think was going to happen, but like, sure, why not? So after we probably spoke about the dermoid.
Why not surgery? Cash.
Well, I feel like I didn't have a chance to process because we went right into period talk, right?
No, I get it. I mean, I feel the same way. I always thought, if I needed a body part removed and I had another to spare, like, who cares?
Well,
let's go.
I think that I was so caught off guard because we went right into a conversation about, her just asking me about my period and everything. And she said, yeah, I think you have endometriosis. And I was like, what? Like, I've heard the word endometriosis.
Yes.
When I've heard the word endometriosis in the past, it's been endometriosis equals infertility.
Right.
So forget that, like, oh, you have a 5 centimeter foreign object basically in your body and now you're going to need surgery and you probably may need it before your wedding because we don't want you to, risk your tube or this twisting. And, like we talked about this, like
it got real fast.
Got really fast. But to me, that was such a small part because to me, it was like, you have endometriosis. And I didn't know what that meant for me and for my fertility.
Right.
Because I was in that moment, spiraled, and I went back to that place of, you're not fertile.
The conversation with the unsolicited advice.
Right. Like, oh.
Which, just by the way, was not me.
No, it was definitely not Anne.
Dancing around that.
No, definitely not Anne. And so I left in tears and I left not knowing what this meant. I left not knowing. I felt so like on edge because, and like Dr. Croft was so incredible and explained everything to me. And it was like, yes, like you're in my care. And I, like my whole practice is like, was, a lot of it is about endometriosis. And basically I took it as like, okay, like this is a blessing that I have someone that's willing to get rid of the endometriosis in conjunction of also being able to remove this dermoid cyst that I have.
Right.
So, well, my dad was probably like, okay, 2 for 1 special, basically. I was like, no, like I have to get this 5 centimeter cyst that could rupture at any point and, I could spiral type of thing removed.
Yes.
And then I also have endometriosis. And what does that look like for me? And what does this mean for everything that I felt before?
Right.
If that makes sense.
Most definitely.
And because I had no answers, I didn't know anyone that had endometriosis. I didn't know anyone other than my mom that had a dermoid cyst. So I felt very alone.
Yeah.
And I reached out to my sister-in-law, Corinne, and I was like, hi, I have endometriosis. I'm not fertile. I'm not going to be able to have kids. I'm getting married in 6 months. I probably have to get surgery before my wedding. What does this mean? What do I do? And Corinna's like, there's one person you need to call, and that is Anne. And I'm like, who is Anne? I'm messaging her right now. Like, I feel like I need to like read the message.
You were insistent.
Like, I feel like I need to like find it. We'll find it. Like,
Yes.
because I didn't even bat an eye.
Yes.
And I was like, I am going to go see Anne. And I felt like, although I knew at this point that you treated majority fertility patients,
Yeah.
I looked at it as, okay, like this is my way into, I don't even know how to explain it, like my way into getting into maybe like a more fertile, I don't even know what's the word.
You won
like,
me over with the fact that we shared a dermoid.
Yes, and a dermoid. Like, and I remember
Not the same one, obviously.
not the same one, but I remember being in a panic because I was getting married and I didn't know
what that meant for your fertility and
what I should do.
next steps.
Exactly. And so I messaged you. You told me all about what you went through, and I was like, okay, I'm going to come and see you. And I remember that you asked me so many of the same questions that Dr. Croft asked me.
Right.
Which like was the first time that I felt
they were probably connected.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that people were looking into things that were not just period related.
Yes.
Which I think is so important.
That it encompasses your entire person.
Right.
Yes.
100%.
And throughout the whole month.
Exactly.
As opposed to just during your period.
Exactly. So,
yes.
And it's so like now that I'm reflecting on my journey, like it's so wild, I guess you can say to me, that it has so many parts that, you know, something that started as like period pain turned into dermoid, turned into endo, and then turned into like our journey together.
And your husband.
And my husband, because it's just, if you would have told me like 2 years ago, or when I first met you, a year ago, that I would be where I am today and I would have gone through what I had gone through in the last year.
Yes.
I would have not believed you. I would have been like, that's not me.
Right.
And I think that because of the lack of education,
yes,
and the lack of resources that there are around endometriosis,
yep,
I think that is the reason why. Because if I didn't have you, like I honestly don't think I would be where I am today.
I think though it's also really important to note that you continued living your life.
Yeah.
And you incorporated it into what you were doing.
Yeah.
With your food.
Yeah.
And your audience became aware of it.
Yeah.
Which I think is really important because I think most influencers, they don't mention what they're going through until it's done.
Right. And for me, it's always been like, this is going to be a reflection of who I am, what I'm eating, what I'm doing. It's not, oh, this is a viral paleo anti-inflammatory salad that you should make. No, I'm making this salad because I feel really inflamed and I'm having probably a really horrible period and I want to make my body less inflamed so that I can get pregnant.
Yes.
You know, maybe I didn't explain that to my audience.
Because they really wanted you to get pregnant.
Right. And so I feel like that, like
a lot of DMs.
A lot of DMs. But going back like a few steps, you know, like fast forward to, okay, the wedding.
Yes.
You know, managing, like we were able to move my surgery that was supposed to be in July. We were able to move it to after the wedding, thank goodness. And I also just wanted to say that, you know, after I heard that I potentially had endometriosis because it was undetected on my scans, I did have a lot of people telling me that I probably don't have endometriosis because my periods were not debilitating.
Right.
So I started to have that mindset. So I started being like, oh, well, I'm going into surgery to remove a dermoid. I probably don't have endo, but if I do, they're going to remove it too.
Right.
Because I was in denial because of how I interpreted endometriosis and like what it meant.
Yes.
Because I thought this diagnosis was I'm not going to be able to have kids. And I didn't want to come to terms with that.
Right. Yeah.
And so had the surgery and it was a 5.5 hour surgery. I ended up like they removed the 5 centimeter cyst. It had hair and teeth and, you know, like Dr. Croft did such an incredible job and she ended up removing endometriosis, I had stage 2.
With excision surgery.
With excision surgery, which I want to mention, Anne was like, you need to make sure it is excision. We're not burning anything off. And you like really like, I asked all the questions that, you told me to ask, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have known.
It's just important because when they cauterize and remove endo by burning it off, essentially, as opposed to removing it by cutting it off, the scarring is significantly worse with the burn method.
Right.
And endo loves scarring.
Right.
So then it comes back, as opposed to excision where they excise it.
Right.
And the grow back is significantly less if it does grow back.
Right. Which is like, for me, I was basically like, let's just get this out of me. Like whatever I have. And I remember, because I am a hypochondriac and I have a lot of, health and medical anxiety. And I remember like there's certain things that I stick onto, right? So, you could lose an ovary. Did I lose an ovary? No. Like we could cut you open, from like one hip bone to the other one. No, like it was a really easy surgery. And I wish that I would have, told myself all this, because when people would have said to me, oh, I heard you're having surgery and, you're getting a laparoscopic surgery. I was like, okay, but there is a potential that I could be cut open and all of this.
You did tell me that.
I
think I then showed you my stomach.
Yeah, like you did. Like I wasn't able to be like, come to terms with anything.
Yes.
Doesn't matter how many people would have told me. And I wish I would have been way calmer about it, because to be honest, like even though I had a 5.5-hour surgery and I had a dermoid and stage 2 endo removed, like I left that surgery feeling better than I had before.
Yes.
And I left that surgery feeling really empowered.
Yeah.
And I left being like, wow, like I'm not going to be another statistic. Like I am going to help women and I'm going to advocate for them. Like I wish that like someone had for me back then.
And remove a lot of the fear factor.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I would get the surgery again if it meant that I had to.
Yeah.
Like it really although the recovery it was a lot to deal with in terms of inflammation, but my periods, like for the most part, were a lot better. Yeah. And I think I spoke with you right afterwards and I was like, I'm going to be this advocate and I'm going to post about it. And I was really worried because with social media, when you talk about anything with fertility wise, especially women's health, you post something like this and you have so many people that want to give their input. And so when I posted about having endometriosis, I firstly read thousands and thousands of stories from women who, one, thanked me for speaking about what I was going through and everything. But at the same time, they were sharing with me, one, their horrific stories that they have gone through. And I'm like, I want to save the world and I want to help everyone. And I felt horrible that so many women have gone through this.
Yes.
And I also was welcoming a lot of comments about my fertility, where now everyone knows that I had the surgery. Everyone knows that I had endometriosis. And now everyone's like, well, either you're not going to be able to get pregnant or, oh, she's trying and she's going to get pregnant right away.
Right.
And so
one or the other.
It was really difficult for me to deal with.
Yeah.
So, like the last 2 years.
And there was an added pressure.
Added pressure.
It was a big time push for you as well, though, that I don't think was fair. And I think caused you a lot of stress.
Right. Because I think that, after you have the surgery, you are told and you hear of successes that happen right away.
Yes.
And I think that right away is different for everyone.
Yeah.
Right away can be 1 month after. Right away can be 6 months after. Right away can be 2 years after.
Right.
I think that it's different for everyone.
Yep.
And I knew that like my endo's not gone forever. Like
No, you're an endometriosis patient. The same way as I'm like an eczema patient.
Right. Like I know,
Sexy.
and I have the knowledge that endo is going to impact me for as long as have all my moving parts down there.
Well, just and in terms of like an autoimmune
Right.
condition.
Right.
It can be either a problem or not.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
And so I think because I knew that and I didn't know how many times did I say to you, my endo is back.
Yes, many times.
Like I was convinced that it was back, and I just went back to a place being like, okay, well, I know that it's gone.
Yeah.
But when is it coming back? And what does this mean for my fertility? So I felt like I was on this fertility ticking timeline that was just not at the time aligned with my own timeline.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to grasp. And I think we spoke about this all the time because in my like mind, I wasn't fertile still.
Right.
In my mind, like I was still, something is wrong with you and like you're gonna have issues. Like I didn't have the confidence that you had in me.
So post-surgery, even though you didn't necessarily identify as someone who was struggling with endo, you still identified as someone who was going to struggle with their fertility.
Right, because I didn't know. It's like the unknown, right? It's
Right.
like, okay, well, you have the surgery and you're going to be fine. But what if I'm not fine? And what does that mean?
Yes.
And I think that in my mind, I thought this way, but in my heart, like I knew that I was fertile.
Right.
It was just,
That's what I love.
I knew that I was, and I wanted to get there because reflecting back on it, like I wish that I could have really just been like, I don't need to be on this timeline. And that's something that me and you really spoke about a lot, is because I struggle with this timeline, you know, working for myself and having a lot of big projects that are going on. Like I was like, oh, maybe I'll try in September.
Yeah.
But if I tried in September, maybe my endo is going to be back by then. And maybe I had to like stop my period.
Right.
Right. Like we didn't know what that
Yeah.
looked like. And that was just like one perspective versus the reality.
Yes. I mean, I definitely gave you fake timelines of when things would need to be done
Yes.
to give you a sense of calm.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, looking back at your journey from even if we just reflect from like surgery on, you went through like a very inflammatory stage.
Yes.
But then it calmed down.
It completely calmed down. Like,
So I think it's important that people realize too, because I think a lot of the time with any type of surgery, patients are under the impression that once I have surgery, I'm going to be good to go.
right. And it's not like you can't just bounce back right away.
Because it's if you have an external cut, you can watch it heal.
Yeah.
And you'll see over time, oh, it's barely a line.
Yeah.
But when it's internal, you're like, okay, well, it's been removed, so now I should be good to go.
Exactly.
But that's not the
It's
case.
It's not the case. And I think that I struggled for, you know, I felt so much better. And I remember like the first painless period that I had.
Yes.
And I remember how light it was. And I remember really just being like, wow, like my quality of life is going to get better.
Yeah.
But I also at the same time was experiencing such bad inflammation. And it was kind of like a vicious cycle because I didn't feel good.
Yeah.
I didn't move my body.
Yeah.
And I just ate like shit.
Yes.
And it was thanks to you. You kicked my ass into shape, but you really was like, your body's inflamed and
you need to move.
I need to move, and I need to also like eat better. I can't be eating pasta every single day. And
I mean, you were pretty good. You weren't.
I was pretty good, but I also
Were you eating pasta every single? I don't remember
but,
that part at all.
I wasn't eting like great. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I really was someone that like really enjoyed eating healthy and eating, you know, like a well-balanced. Like I had a well-balanced lifestyle and I loved moving. I would work out all the time before my surgery.
Yeah.
And I went from like 100 to 0, and it stayed 0 for a really long time until.
Mostly because you didn't actually feel well. But then I think you pushed yourself even when you didn't feel like it.
Right. And I felt so much better. And with that, I was able to, you know, take something that was making me feel really good. And I was able to create really meaningful content about it because I was filming my anti-inflammatory recipes while talking about, okay, well, I had surgery. I still feel like shit. And this is what I'm doing to make myself feel better. But something that a lot of people don't know is that I also was eating this way because I was trying to get pregnant.
Right.
And like, that was something that I didn't disclose because I was not about to talk about my fertility journey
until right now,
because of what I went through, I could not accept, and like already getting all those comments, I could not welcome any more like negativity around my fertility. And it was just something that like I probably only spoke about with like you and my husband and Corinne and my sister.
I mean, I think part of your success as well, though, is to be attributed to your mindset around that. Because something that I run into a lot with my patients, and something I had someone today, for example, say to me, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're not my therapist." And I was like, no, I'm definitely not. But I'd say 75% of what I do is reframe what people are thinking about their fertility. And at no point did you think of yourself as an infertility patient.
No.
Or someone who is an infertility warrior or struggling with infertility. You were working on
my fertility,
enhancing your fertility.
Right. And I still, even with what I went through, like I still wouldn't call it an infertility warrior.
No.
But like I can't say that I was because I didn't know what my fertility was like until I tried.
Right.
And like, that's the reality of it, is that you have so many people that are ready to label like what is going to happen to you without even knowing it.
Yes.
And it really fucks you up. I'm so sorry. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
This is like HBO.
It really fucks you up because it's like an angel and a devil. You're like, you're fertile. You're not fertile. You're fertile. You're not fertile. This is a bad period. This is a good period. Like, you don't know what all these things mean.
Yeah.
We don't have the knowledge and the resources, like, still.
Yeah. You don't have a crystal ball. You can't see at the end if it actually is going to end up the way you hope for it to.
Exactly. And so my husband and I, to like start with our fertility journey, like, you know, it took us both like, how do I even like word this? Like, it took us like a while to be like, we're ready to have kids, because if I didn't have the surgery and in a perfect world, I probably wouldn't have tried so soon.
Would you say
that
you were almost, because I remember that he was less nervous.
Oh, he was
like chomping at the bit.
Oh, he's like ready for kids right after we got married.
But
like,
you were hesitant. Do you think any of your hesitance was because you were concerned that you would have...
I didn't want to deal with it.
A hard time. Right.
I did not want to deal with it.
Right.
I was like, I already went through surgery. I already had endometriosis. I had this dermoid cyst removed. I've had people tell me I'm not fertile. I don't need proof. Exactly.
Right.
And I don't want to deal with it. Like, I just can't have another. I can't deal with it. Like, I just didn't mentally think that I was able to.
Yes.
And I think that is so accurate. Like, that the reason why I didn't want to try right away was because I felt like I wasn't going to be able to get pregnant.
Right.
And it's so wild because it's such an isolating.
Well, I wonder how many people feel that way. I have so many patients that come to see me who pre-qualify themselves by saying, I know that you only deal with fertility, but I just want to balance my hormones.
And you're like
4 months later, they're like, JK, want to have a baby.
Right.
I'm like, JK, I know.
Right. But so when I first went to you, you're like, oh, you're going to see Anne, it's for fertility. I'd be like, no.
You're like, we are dermoid sisters.
I knew. I'm like, I'm in there.
Yeah. Oh.
I know that I'm going to make the shift and I am going to be a fertility patient. Like, I knew it.
Right.
I had comfort in knowing that you were able to treat me for periods, endo, stomach issues, everything I was dealing with. And then it would ultimately like lead to my fertility.
Yes.
And so I'll never forget, my husband and I were like, okay, February, I just got back from Miami, like a really exciting work trip. We're like, this is going to be our month. It's going to happen. I had surgery in October. I'm good. It's going to happen.
Yes.
And I remember being like so excited, but also really nervous because like I didn't know if I was ready. Was I ready? I didn't know. It was so much of the unknown.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when I found out I was not pregnant and I came to see you and I was a mess. I remember feeling so defeated.
Yeah.
And this was like the first time trying. And I remember being so upset and crying to you. And I remember you holding my hand and you're like, you are a spring chicken. It's going to be okay. I promise you, like, you are fertile, Jamie.
I did call you a chicken.
You call me spring chicken so many times. Like literally. And I feel like I embraced like the spring chicken. Like I started being like, I'm 30, I'm a spring chicken, you know? Like,
yes.
I actually was 29 at the time. But
a youth.
But I remember really at that moment, it wasn't only about not being able to get pregnant. It was exactly what you said before.
Your worst fears.
Like,
and you were watching them come.
Right. Because in my mind, I'm like, well, I had this surgery and it was a success. And everyone that has a surgery has success and they get pregnant right away.
Right.
So I was holding on to that like right away.
Yes.
Not knowing what it meant.
Yeah.
And then, you know, February was a negative test. And then March, April, May, June. And it was
becoming dire.
It was becoming like something is wrong with me.
Right.
I started to, one, at that moment, I was like, wow, I am ready. Yes. I want to have kids. It was that negative test that made me realize that like, this is what I wanted my entire life. And this is what I want. And I'm in full force.
Yeah.
And I started living, I would say like every day from that negative pregnancy test up until now. I was living every single day.
Thinking about it.
Right. Tracking my cycle, getting my period, negative test, ovulating, timed intercourse. Like it was all that I thought about.
Yeah.
And it was something that was so hard for me to deal with because I had to show up as this person online that just was a successful endosurgery patient.
Yeah.
And I was able to inspire so many other women and help advocate for them. But I was struggling like with my own fertility at the time. And it was really hard for me.
I remember you had actually sent someone to me. One of your followers actually came and started to see me. And I told you, the follower that you sent with endo, she's pregnant now. And my intention at the time was to show you, like hers was very severe and now she's pregnant.
Yeah.
And you were like, I'm so happy for her.
Yeah, like it was.
But it was a complex moment in time because on one hand, you were so happy for her.
Yeah.
But on the other end, you were like, well, what's wrong with me then?
Right. Like what is wrong with me going back to 5 years ago, going back to like everything that I've dealt with, it was, I would say like the last like 8 months, like were like probably like some of like the lowest times that I've felt.
Yes.
And it's so hard when every single person around you is asking you when you're going to get pregnant. Because I put myself online. They know everything I'm going through.
Yeah.
So they can only assume because I'm going to you. I just had endometriosis surgery. I post content with Dr. Croft. We do a lot of stuff together.
Yeah.
So people only assume that like I'm either struggling or I'm pregnant or I'm trying. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so for me, it was so hard to navigate that. And I just remember I've cried to you so many times because it was something that I never thought I would deal with, but I wish that I can go back and tell myself that it will all be okay.
Well, because I think about 4 months in, I was like, I need your husband to get his sperm tested.
Yes.
And you were like, okay, no problem. And I was like, really? That's it? And you were like, yeah, he'll be down. And he was.
Because this was something that we both really wanted. And we both were so like open and honest about everything that we went through.
Yes.
And even though we'd been trying at the time for 4 months, I think that my husband was able to see
what you
what I was going through
Yeah.
and what I had already gone through. I went through surgery.
Yeah.
Like I had to get the surgery. You know what I mean? It wasn't an elective surgery. It was, you have to get this.
Yes.
And so when my husband called his doctor, and I remember like you told us exactly like what to say and everything, his doctor basically said to him, well, you're young, you're healthy.
Yeah.
I don't think you need a sperm analysis. And then my husband was like, no, I need one. My wife had endometriosis surgery and we're still struggling. We need one.
Yeah. He was great.
He was really advocated because it was something that we both really wanted.
Yeah.
And he started to come see you.
Yes.
He listened to everything you said. It took a while, but
he was my favorite husband.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I hope he hears this and says, and is happy about that.
I've never had anyone report back to me.
Yeah. He was
the only husband I've ever had
Yeah.
who wrote down like fertility on the reason for visit. The rest of them all right.
I love him.
My wife made me.
Really?
And I instantly cringe, throw up in my little plant holder, and then make a mental note to really jab those needles in. Just kidding.
Like
JK. I don't jab anyone.
But I just want to say one thing, that like through all of this, like you were so incredibly there for us. Like you really were. It wasn't just me that you had to deal with. You were now dealing with my husband, who was also messaging you. And we were both going through it because we both were trying. We were having no success. And at the same time, all of our friends were getting pregnant.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to navigate. It was like hard to show up and go to events and, you know, really put on a happy face when you're surrounded by it. And,
Yeah.
you know, you're at a wedding and people are like, is there alcohol in your glass? Like everyone's trying to, you know, be nosy and like see like, are you drinking or are you not? Like there's just like so much terrible pressure. And I just have to say that like we would not be where we are today without you. No, really, like we wouldn't. And I think that you don't realize like how much you helped us. And seriously, like really, you did.
I always like to say that I try to make as little time for friends so that I can force my patients to be friends with me.
That is what happened
now
with
here
us.
I am in their home.
But I also have to say like
taking pictures of their stuff.
Like literally. But I also have to say like we also went through a false positive, which was traumatic.
Yeah. Yeah, that was not great.
Which was like really, you know, after trying and getting a false positive, I was like, oh, of course this happens to me. I really went like 24 hours believing I was pregnant and I was not.
Yeah.
You know, that was difficult. Went through a chemical pregnancy.
Yes.
Which also was like incredibly difficult. And I knew something was wrong. And so did you. Like you
had a good attitude about it though.
Yeah, because, and I think this is also something I want to point out because it's so interesting how like my mind kind of shifted thanks to your help and your guidance, because when I had the chemical pregnancy, I also had COVID.
Right.
And I, in my mind, was like, oh, well, my period was really bad and I was so heavy and it was cramping for 3 days and back pain, which is not normal, but it was COVID and I was so tired, but it was COVID.
Yeah.
And you were like, no, like it's a chemical pregnancy.
Chemical.
And at first I was upset, but you were like, this is a good thing. You could get pregnant.
Yeah. It was our little, I like to say my bell lap.
Exactly.
I love a chemical pregnancy.
And you did some witchy things to me at the clinic, like literally took out like this massive
fire
flame
cup.
And we put it all over my stomach. And I was like, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm here for it.
You were down.
And that for me, like was a really low moment.
Yeah.
But I shifted my perspective to, well, I can get pregnant and I'm fertile. So like, it's just something was wrong with that, with that timing.
Yes.
And I felt like for the first time, I think in like 8 months of trying, that was the first time that like that chemical pregnancy gave me hope.
It was your bell lap.
It really was.
Yes.
And my entire,
Give you some fire.
I honestly think so, because I think my entire attitude and everything shifted,
Yeah.
minus the morning that we'll get to, that one morning.
Yeah.
But that next month was the month that I got pregnant.
Meanwhile, Ryan's over here like doing a light show and I'm pretending to not be incredibly distracted. And when you switch it to the rainbow, I was like, I am this cool that I am having rainbow lights
all over
on
you.
this podcast. Or I'm like that fatigued that I'm now envisioning
Blinded by the light.
rainbow lights. Yeah. No, I liked it. Feel free to continue. I'm sincere. I was into it. Can we talk about your husband?
Yes, 100%. So now
Can
that
we call him down?
No.
JK, I'm just joking.
He'll be like, Jamie, never talking to you again. But now
Although
that I can like finally openly say that I'm pregnant, and
Yes.
like you were the first person I told before even telling my husband. And the line was not even there. Like the line was not there.
I could see it.
No. Like I have to post the line after this because
Others will see it. They'll vote yes.
it's after after doing so many negative tests and like you see a little change, or like, holy shit, like this is
more
positive.
could see it sitting where Ryan is.
And I also just want to say, one thing that I think is so important. You said to me before the summer, because I was feeling hopeless and depressed and so dramatic, and I was like, I'm not getting pregnant. You were like, one, you are more fertile than you think, which I will never forget.
Yes.
And then you also said to me that you are going to get pregnant by the end of the summer.
It was on my vision board.
And August came, and August was when I had the chemical.
Yeah.
And then September
This is a crunch time.
is when we found out. And you're like, I think I found out like September, I don't know, like 22nd. I don't even know the date. And you're like, well, September, like summer ends September 21st. So we did it.
Yes. No, you ovulated around that time.
Right. So then I conceived in the summer.
Conceived in the summer.
Right.
Because we found out in October.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
We.
So
Little bit
you're
up
the
there.
first, you're the first person I told. And like that to me it was so crazy, because I said to you, don't tell me that I'm pregnant. I'm buying tampons. I'm getting my period. I already took I took a test. It was negative. I just have sore boobs. It's fine. Sure, my Greek salad smelled like crab and I was going to projectile vomit, but
Yeah.
like
That was the morning that you tested, you were like, that was one of the lowest.
yeah, it was the lowest. I think it was the lowest
Because the
moment.
summer had come and gone.
Summer had come and gone, and I said to you, like, when is it my turn? Like,
Yeah.
when is like my karma gonna come?
Yes.
Because I just felt so defeated. And we're also gonna get back to this, but like I was gonna go to a fertility clinic, I think the month after.
Yeah.
You said to me, like, if October doesn't happen, like we're gonna go to a fertility clinic.
We're going to get a little boost.
A little boost.
Yes.
And so again, I was hit with a little timeline, which like I knew but to me, like the timeline was like, well, it's either gonna happen now or it's gonna happen later.
Yeah. But it's going to happen.
But it's gonna happen.
Yes.
And so I think that, I don't know, it's so crazy how these things happen.
I know everyone's going to think I'm obsessed with sperm. There's going to be memes definitely made. Maybe that's what my podcast art should be. Me covered in sperm.
The sperm file.
What do you think? Should I send that to the designer? Yeah.
The
maybe.
sperm files.
Sperm files. Like X files. Yeah. Cute. Ooh, XY files.
Look at you.
Then people think I'm biased towards boy sperm. I'm not. But I think the two of you were such a team. And I think was it after your birthday when we got your husband's results back?
Yes.
That we found out that he had a very high count.
Yep.
And his morphology was on the low end of normal, but it was still normal.
Yep.
But the motility like the number of forward progressing sperm
Yep.
was very low.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really shocking and hard moment for the first time for your other half, as opposed to for you.
Right.
It was almost like a
relief.
moment of fresh air where you were like, okay, so I'm not the problem.
Right. Like I was like, holy shit. Like,
Yes.
it's not me.
Yes.
So everything I've made up in my head for the last 8 years
Yes.
is not maybe me.
Yes.
And
Which was a very, I have a lot of people who feel that way when
Yeah.
they get back a semen analysis, and it's not terrible, but it's also not amazing.
right.
Is that it's this relief.
Yeah. And I felt like this load of like bricks was being lifted off my shoulders.
Yes.
Because I was putting in the work and I had been putting in the work. And now I knew it was my husband's time to really start putting in the work.
Yes.
And
he did.
And he really did. He showed up.
Yes.
I don't know. I think the way that maybe you can explain like what low motility means, because I think your analogy of it like really helped us both to understand
Right.
like what it meant, and that it didn't mean he's infertile
No.
and I'm infertile. You know what I mean?
No. So my favorite, if I get back a bad semen analysis, meaning that something is off in the parameters, my favorite is to get a high count and a low motility, because I equate it to when essentially you have either the Boston Marathon, where that's the best case scenario, where everybody is fast. There's a lot of runners, but everyone is fast. So you're going to get everybody to the finish line intact
Right.
and quickly.
Yeah.
That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario is where you have sort of a more amateur marathon. And you have a lot of couch potatoes who've just decided to start running.
Yeah.
And then
You're slower.
amongst those couch potatoes, you have a few elite runners. And the issue is that those elite runners have to dodge and get around the less efficient runners
Yeah.
to get to the egg.
Yeah.
Another case scenario would be when you have like a 5K where you have, everybody's decent. You've got an average number of runners, but because there's so much space, and because there's so, in terms of count, like sperm count, if 50% are motile and there's a small amount of runners, for example, or a small amount of sperm, the good ones are going to get to the finish line.
Right.
The issue that we were facing was the really high count and the really low motility. So the best runners were not getting to the finish line because they were getting too tired,
Right.
having to navigate around all these slow pokes.
Right. I just want to say that.
Or dead forms.
Right. And I just want to say that even though we got this semen analysis in May, like it didn't happen like right away, because we knew, thanks to you, that sperm takes time.
74 days.
And I feel like that was like in our timeline, kind of.
It was.
And you told my husband the things that he had to do. And
like an agreeable champion, he did them.
yeah, like he loves baths, and he has not taken a bath in a year. Like I feel so bad. He keeps being like, now can I take a bath? I'm like, when we're out of the first trimester.
I don't get it. We should get him on at some point.
I know.
Just to question
of like why he likes to take baths.
Why he wants to be in the bath so badly.
Ryan, do you like baths? No. So
it makes me feel so antsy.
I know.
There's a million things I can be doing.
I also don't love baths, but baths were a really big thing.
Yes.
And
he switched to cold baths.
He would take an ice bath.
Yes.
Like the month before like we got pregnant, he was taking an ice bath almost every single night.
Yes.
He was working out almost every day.
Yep.
Motility
is improved a lot by movement. Specifically, like if you're sitting for long periods of time.
He walks during the day after he would drive to work. Like he really, and you held him accountable. Like you, as much as I was annoying him, like you were messaging him all the time and you guys had like your little banter back and forth and you would.
It was mostly him just sending me like a check mark.
Right.
Meaning like I did my workout for the day.
Right. And I think what's important to note was that he was so motivated. And I know that he also confided in you and he said to you, like, why is it not happening?
Yeah.
Like, I'm upset.
Yeah. Like his friends were getting pregnant.
Yeah.
And he was working out and making an effort, taking his supplements and taking ice baths, and it wasn't happening. And he was in the trenches with you,
right?
Which is nice because I feel like a lot of the time, I mean, today was a good example. I had a patient who's, she said, "I'm so sad that I can't do this for my husband," and I almost threw up on her. You're like, what are you talking about?
What about
you? You're an item. You're a team.
Yeah.
Takes two. It always astounds me when patients will have partners who have not ideal sperm.
Yeah.
And they are like, okay, but what more can I do? What more can I do?
Right. And
because they don't expect anything to change on their partners. You held him accountable though.
We both held each other accountable.
Right.
Because as much as that I knew that maybe I wasn't all of the issue.
Yes.
I still had to, like, I still was moving my body. I still was trying to eat, for the most part, anti-inflammatory. I wasn't like drinking as much. We both weren't. And it was hard because it was the summer. Mm-hmm. We had like a lot of social events and stuff. And I felt like we both prioritized like ourselves and what we wanted.
Yeah.
And we really made an effort.
Yes.
And like we did things because I think like such a big part of this is, I think you sometimes lose your, you lose
bond.
Exactly. Like, you're not only am I consumed by, okay, well now I'm 5 days to my ovulation and now I'm on my ovulation and now, now I'm on my period. Like every day is another day towards a pregnancy test, realistically. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think that you kind of like, it becomes all that you talk about. It consumes you, both of you for that matter, because it was both of us going in it together. It wasn't just me. It was also him.
Yes.
And I think that when we started to prioritize like us, we started going for like date nights and started doing more things together. Like it really, and we started talking about it more.
Right.
Right. Like we both started talking about like how we felt about it.
Yes.
And I really explained to him what it meant for me getting my period every month. Like not just getting a negative pregnancy test, but like what it meant for me. It was like mourning like a loss that wasn't there, right? Like getting my period. And I'm sorry if that sounds dramatic, but
you know how all of these podcasters have a moment where they stop the person and that's the soundbite?
Yeah.
That was your soundbite.
Stop it.
That was so good.
Really?
Yeah, that was amazing.
Oh my God.
The conversation of what it meant for you to get your period every month.
Yeah. And no one will understand.
The most visceral timeline ever.
Right. And like my friends have been so supportive, like so supportive. My best friend is like amazing and is by me. And she's not even like, in the same situation as me. And a lot of my friends aren't trying to have kids and they're not married. And so it's really hard because it just adds like another extra layer of isolation. Right. Yeah. Which is like, and it's really difficult because no one knows what you're going through unless they've been there. And that's why I felt so much comfort in talking with you, and you've helped me so much because not only have you been there, but you are a therapist. I hate to say whoever you're not a therapist. I was like, when I heard you say that, I was like, you are most definitely one of my therapists, one of my
We
5.
are in trouble.
Yeah,
society at large.
But no, really, you are, because you are so compassionate and you have held my hand like so many times over the last year and a half, and like really made me believe that I was more fertile than I was.
And I would like to point out, because I always like to point this out, that I was right. I mean, as usual.
You were right. Anne was right.
I was right.
And you honestly, there was
such a bro move. Like
there were sometimes I was like, Like,
And
is this
are
worth
you
it?
okay?
Like, am I doing everything right? Like,
Is that when you were burning Moxo over your stomach?
Yes, I'm so happy. I don't think I have to mox anymore. I hope not. But
no.
yeah, like I was moxing every single day.
Lighting you on fire in the middle of the clinic.
Taking like 30 supplements and
day.
you know, like it was a lot.
In totality, pill-wise, not
Oh, sorry.
pretty different.
Not actually, just like, you know, a lot of supplements.
Yeah, that was a lot.
But we were investing a lot of like our time and, you know, resources into this. And it was something that we really wanted. And it was something that, you know, I spoke to people that were really close in my life about because I am that type of person. Like I want to, which is why I want to share my story and like why I want people to know when I announced that I'm pregnant, that it wasn't just like I tried for 1 month and I got pregnant because I had a successful surgery.
Yeah.
Like there was struggle.
You also, I think you, even though you don't think that you believed in yourself, in your heart, as you said earlier, you must have, because at no point did you think I need IVF.
No. And when you said to me, when we got my husband's results back and you said, you called me right away and you're like, this is great. And I'm like, what do you mean this is great? Like, what? And you're like, we have two options. You're like, we can do A, which is lifestyle changes, or B, IUI. And
with a wash.
And when you said IUI, I was like, no, like, not that I was against it. I wasn't ready.
And the reason why I said IUI is just because of his high count and low motility.
Right. And I also was like nervous about even enduring and going to a fertility clinic because I was not ready to open that can of worms.
Right.
Because I was like, I just got surgery.
Yes.
I'm just feel like myself again.
Yes.
Not ready to put myself through all of that. But if of course, if I had to, I would have.
Yeah.
You know, but also I didn't know how would IVF impact my endometriosis.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many questions.
Because estrogen had not been your friend in the past.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so here we are.
Here we are.
And I'm almost out of the first trimester.
You are. Yeah.
And
is this your big announce?
This is my big announcement.
This is it.
This is it. And
this is as famous as I'm ever going to be.
It, Anne. Anne is actually Anne is very famous, actually. Everyone knows Anne. Everyone wants to get in to see Anne.
No, they don't. No.
Everyone is asking me how they can get on the wait list to see Anne. No, but really, like, I truly believe that we are in the position that we are in today because of you. So I just want to thank you because we love you so much.
I love you guys too. I'm going to stay on this couch now.
You're welcome to be here forever as Izzy's attacking Ryan.
I know. That was pretty smooth.
So happy to see you. But really, like,
you should do another episode when I'm your birth coach.
Oh my God. Do you want people to know that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Anne is starting a new business called Anne Energy Tree Birth Coaching. You can inquire for 2030 now.
I'm only
2030.
This is my only coaching scenario. Yeah, that's it.
Oh my God, Anne.
I'm doulaing one time.
I honestly can't wait. But no, really.
And Jane, that's it.
I just have to say that Anne is truly a witch.
That's great.
You are. You are. No, you are. But I just want to say that, no, really, like you gave me the hope and really made me believe like that I am more fertile than I think. And I want to pay forward like everything that you did for me to like everyone else on my platform, which is why I want to share my story, which is why I want people to know what we went through and what, you know, struggling to get pregnant looks like, because it is different for everyone. Everyone's on a different timeline, but
yeah,
you're more fertile than you think.
You're more fertile than you think, and everyone deserves to have their concerns looked at uniquely.
Yep.
And then get a unique solution.
Exactly. It's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Now we're here.
And now we are. I appreciate so much that you came and you did this in your first trimester.
Oh my God.
When I was in my first trimesters, I was on a recliner watching Murder, She Wrote. eating Annie's mac and cheese.
Well, I've been doing the Annie's mac and
Exclusively.
cheese, and I've been watching Real Housewives on repeat,
Right.
and I am just a ball of exhaustion.
You're doing great now.
Thank you so much. I
I'm
feel
the one
like
who
the
drank
lights are
coffee.
like maybe like really like brightening me up.
Yeah, you do. You look glowy.
But I do want to say one thing that I've said to you today was that I am not nervous for labor and delivery at all. Probably because I know you're going to be there. But like to me, like the anxiety of like every week that goes by is like real because of the struggle and like what I went through. And I feel like that's just like a whole other topic. But
yeah.
if I didn't have your support now, I don't know where I would be.
Well, it's not going anywhere. So
Not
don't
going
worry.
anywhere.
No.
Our next episode is on subchorionic hematomas, right?
Stay tuned. Bleeding.
What does that mean during pregnancy?